Today's discussion topic is digitization of healthcare segment. This is Kalpesh from NASCOM. We have industry leaders and experts in health tech domain to share their thoughts and views on how digitization of health tech as a segment has impacted our lives and the way business models are evolving in healthcare sector. Before we delve into the discussion, we have Dr. Avnish Pandey from Markets and Markets presenting executive summary of report on healthcare IT markets global forecast to 2024. This will also set the context for the roundtable discussion. Over to you, Dr. Avnish. Dr. Avnish, you can start your presentation now and share the screen as well.
Okay. So can you give me access? Just make me host or co-host so I can share my screen.
Sure.
So hello everyone. This is Dr. Avnish from Markets and Markets, and I have joined this roundtable discussion along with my colleague Nikita, and she is a subject matter expert in healthcare IT, and she is working with me along uh, working with me on the healthcare IT subjects and reports related to uh, various technologies within the related to healthcare IT within the healthcare. So I'm going to share my screen. I have prepared few slides on healthcare IT market. So in that slide, you will get an idea about the how big is this market, what is the geographical split, what are the key trends, how giants are entering into the healthcare IT market, and what are the competitive landscape of this market, what are the high growth opportunity area within the healthcare IT market. So we can set a context for the roundtable discussion. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, Abhish, we can.
Yeah. So this is our capabilities around healthcare IT market. If you look at the healthcare IT market at markets, we track entire ecosystem of healthcare IT, and we are tracking this market for more than 8 years, and we have deep understanding about the overall healthcare IT market, and we have published more than 80 studies in last 5 years related to healthcare IT market. So the few studies which we have recently published in within the healthcare IT that include healthcare fraud analytics, revenue cycle management, then healthcare claims management, and so on. Apart from a syndicate study, we have done we have done few consulting assignment as well as per the client requirement around the healthcare IT market, and we have tracked high growth market within the healthcare IT as well. We have done consulting assignment for Accenture, 3M, IBM, Cerner, McKesson. Then we have done like in recent years, we have seen that the adoption of healthcare IT is increasing in pharma companies as well. So we have worked with the pharma company as well in the prospect of healthcare IT. So Pfizer, GSK, J&J, Abbott, Sanofi are some key clients uh, for the healthcare IT prospect. Here is our healthcare IT ecosystem. So we have covered components, solution, and end user.
Avnish, can you put your presentation in slide mode?
Okay, just give me a minute. Is this fine?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is our healthcare IT ecosystem. So we have more than 115 studies around healthcare IT. So we have covered components, solution, and various end user within the healthcare IT system. In components, we have hardware and software. In hardware and software, we have storage solution, network, security solution, cloud computing, connectivity, and integration solution. In support services, we have consulting, implementation, and integration, support and maintenance, and then training and education. If we talk about solution, we have categorized various healthcare IT solution in four major categories: clinical solutions, then non-clinical solutions, then payer solution, and SCIT outsourcing services. Within the clinical solution, we have EHR integration, practice management, PACS, then specialty information system, LIS, then EDI, VNA, radiation dose management, and solutions like mHealth apps and telehealth, which is the fastest growing segment within the healthcare IT market, and they are having huge growth potential in next 5 years. In non-clinical solution, we have healthcare analytics, which is being used by various healthcare payers and providers. Then we have CRM solution, medication management, then supply chain, pharmacy information, workforce, and so on. In payers, we have claims management, analytics and fraud management solution, pharmacy audit solution, population health, billing and accounts, and so on. And in SCIT outsourcing, we have process outsourcing, analytics outsourcing, then managed outsourcing, and integration and training support. If we talk about end user, we cover healthcare provider, that then we cover payers, ACOs, then government agencies, pharmacies, laboratories, and various research organization as an end user in our HCIT ecosystem. So if we talk about the market size of healthcare IT, uh, we have estimated that it's a quite old report, and we have published this report in 2019. So we have number for 2019 and 2024, and we have a report on various component of healthcare IT. As per previous slide, like EHR, we have a dedicated report on EHR, hospital EHR and ambulatory EHR. So we track child market as well as parent market SCIT. So parent SCIT market in 2019, the market was estimated around 185 to 190 billion, and we estimated that this market will grow at a rate of 15 to 16% and will reach 390 to 395 billion. And if we look at the geographical split of revenue of SCIT market, North America accounted for more than around 40 or 50%, around 49%. They account for 49% of the total market, and the CAGR for North America is 15.2, then Europe 29.5 and growing at 14.3%. And Asia Pacific, the share is 15%, but growth is higher as compared to other geographies, and the growth in APAC is 18.3%. Then Latin America, 4.4% share in global market, the growth is 15.7%. Then Middle East is having only 1.5%, but growing at 14% of CAGR. Then if we look at the dynamics, what are the drivers, restraints, and opportunity and challenges present within this market? So we have seen that government mandate and support for healthcare IT solution is one of the biggest driver for this market. Then we have seen uses of big data in last few years. So rising use of big data is driving the growth of this market. Then high return on investment for healthcare IT solutions, and need to curtail the escalating cost of healthcare cost, because everyone is talking about the rising healthcare cost. So people are implementing, providers and payers both are implementing various kind of SCIT solution to curtail the healthcare cost. Restraints restraints is specifically in developing countries, like they lack the IT infrastructure. Infrastructural point, if we talk about the infrastructural point of view, they lack infrastructure for the adoption of various kind of IT solution. This is one restraint present in this market. If we talk about the opportunity, use of healthcare IT solution in out-care patient facilities has increased. And as I have discussed earlier, mHealth and telehealth is among the fastest growing segment. So growing mHealth, telehealth, and remote patient monitoring market, offering key opportunities for the players operating in this market. Then cloud-based EHR is another opportunity present in this market, and the industry is shifting towards patient-centric healthcare delivery, and that will offer an opportunity in this market. Security challenge, if we talk about the challenge, security concern regarding data and interoperability issues are the two key challenges present in this market. So these are the dynamics of the market. What are the factors which are driving the growth, and restraints, opportunities, and challenges? And I have not listed all the trends within this market, but in past couple of years, we have seen that the technology giants are entering into healthcare IT market. Like Apple, they have launched health record EHR data viewer. Then uh, they have health record application interface API as well. Then Google is also driving innovation through open source Google Cloud Healthcare API, and Amazon Web Service, they partnered with Medisphere in March 2018. So we have seen that the giant technology giants are also entering into the healthcare IT market, and they are seeing potential within this market, so they are entering into this market. Uh, if we talk about the segment and their market size, we have four major sub-market within the healthcare IT. One is provider IT, that is clinical solution. Then provider IT, non-clinical solution, then payer IT solutions, and then healthcare IT outsourcing services. So here we have provided market size and growth potential of various provider and payer IT solutions along with the healthcare IT outsourcing services. Then we have enlisted key clinical solution like EHR, population health, then specialty information, medical apps and telehealth. So we can see that medical apps and telehealth, they are growing at a rate of more than 30%. Telehealth is growing at 34.8% and medical app is growing at 42.5%. So these are the high growth market within the healthcare IT. Then if we talk about non-clinical solution, healthcare asset management is one of the category which is growing at the rate of more than 31%. So having highest growth potential within the non-clinical IT solution market. Here is the snapshot of APAC. What is the scenario of healthcare IT solution within the APAC? So if we look at the APAC market, it's growing at rate of 18.3%, and APAC is accounting for 15.6%, was accounted for 15.6% of global healthcare IT. And if we talk about country level breakdown within the APAC, Japan accounted for largest share, and they accounted for 45.4% of total APAC market. And if we talk about the growth, the healthcare IT solution in Japan is growing at a rate of 17.2%. So we have provided breakup of healthcare IT products in Asia Pacific, provider solution, outsourcing, and payer solution. Then by component, we have services, software, and hardware. If we talk about the country level market, Japan in 2019, the market size was around 13.7 billion. In China, it was 7.3, but growing at a faster rate, 19.4%. India is the market size is 5.8 billion, but growing at 19.1%. And then rest of APAC, 3.6 billion and growing at a rate of 18.6%. The drivers for the growth of SCIT market in APAC is government initiative for e-health, then demand of advanced healthcare system due to increasing per capita disposable income, then rising medical tourism, and awareness of health management among the people are the key factor which is driving the growth of SCIT market within the APAC region. So this is the competitive leadership mapping, competitive landscape of healthcare IT. Usually what we do at our company when we are tracking the market, we identify leading players operating in that particular market, and we enlist 40 to 50 players operating in that particular market, and we map those players for their geographical reach, their revenue generation, and their product portfolio offering. So on the basis of that, we map each player against various parameters, like we have plotted this graph against strength of product portfolio offering and business strategy excellence. And if we talk about the product portfolio, that include breadth and depth of product offering, product innovation, then breadth of end user catered to, and product branding. Similarly, for business strategy, we have geographical footprint, then organic growth strategies and inorganic growth strategies, and channel strategy. So on the basis of these parameters, we provide rating to the companies, and after analyzing this, we plot this graph in four quadrant: visionary leader, dynamic differentiator, emerging companies, and innovator within the SCIT market. So this is from my side. This is the executive summary of healthcare IT. Do you have any question?
So I have one question here talking about more from the healthcare IT. So what about from the engineering point of view?
In actually at markets and markets, if we look at any particular report, the report has certain a fixed scope and something is out of scope. So if we talk about the engineering, we have not included engineering part within the scope of healthcare IT. Even hardware are covered in this report, but engineering part is not covered.
Okay, got it. That's what I thought. Thank you.
Like I just wanted to highlight one thing. Like we as we have mentioned that the digitalization is happening, and we have seen a lot of happening in this market. And the med device company and pharma company, both these are the two different set of companies, but they are partnering with healthcare IT companies. Like if we talk about the pharma companies are partnering with the healthcare IT companies for their drug development. They are incorporating AI in their drug development process to shorten the drug discovery phase. Similarly, med device companies, they are incorporating AI, like companies like GE and Philips. They are incorporating their AI solutions within their devices, AI platform within their devices. So these kind of change is happening in this market, and we are seeing that in next 5 years the artificial intelligence and robotics will grow. And artificial intelligence, as per our understanding, the adoption of AI in pharma and in med device will increase in next 5 years, and I believe this market will grow at more than 50% CAGR. So team, this is from my end, from SCIT perspective.
Thank you so much, Avnish. This is a perfect context setting to the roundtable discussion. So with this, ladies and gentlemen, we are starting the discussion. Prasad Devre, Director NASSCOM, will moderate the discussion. Over to you, Prasad.
Thank you, Kalpesh. And it's given me a difficult task to moderate the discussion, this roundtable discussion. It's virtual and there are 20 plus participants. Actually, I would have loved to introduce each participant, but if I start introducing and the kind of work each of the organizations participants has done, I don't think it's even 1 hour is good enough for that introduction. So the way we thought is we would go about it is when I will just put one theme for this roundtable discussion. When you are speaking, please introduce yourself and share your points. And you can always raise your hand on the Zoom window, chat window, and I will call the names. You can speak about the theme we are discussing. Now, I think Avnish has discussed at a great deal various market size and what are the opportunities here. It's a big segment. It starts with, it could be blood bank management system, it could be diagnostics, medical devices, clinical trial management systems, and it's also the foundation is basically CRM, ERP, workforce management. Now with AI, IoT, cloud playing a very different role and taking it to the consumers directly. So we have seen that there's a significant shift towards virtualization of healthcare and value-based care and emerging new data sources for healthcare technologies. Now, I would start with the first very easy theme, and that's where probably most of you also would have contributed a lot. And I would request you to share your experience or your insights or any exciting examples where during the pandemic, healthcare segment, there has been a great help on the adoption of digital technologies. It could be mental or behavioral apps or remote health monitoring. So I would request you to share your views. How did you experience the adoption of digital technologies during pandemic?
Thank you, Prasad. This is Dr. Raghav Shetty. I am heading healthcare and life science in Atos India, sales. And also along with me, Mr. Manjunath Kulkarni is there. and he is the Director of Sales for India Atos. And we would like to, first of all, thank you very much for this opportunity. So let me start with what exactly, since I would like to add a couple of things to Avnish Pandey, what he actually shared research data, and as it says, the healthcare has become one of the India's largest sector, both in terms of employment and revenue. And industry is growing at a tremendous pace owing to its strengthening coverage, services, and increasing expenditure by both public as well as private sector. And as Avnish said, market is expected to grow at the rate of 17% CAGR, by 2022. Let me add one more data to Avnish Pandey's database. By 2025, telehealth is projected to exceed $64 billion in US, and globally, the market is projected to surpass $175 billion. That means globally, the telehealth market is projected to grow at the rate of 16.8 CAGR, And unfortunately, I would like to mention this. This is the data research done by FICCI in association with Ernst & Young. The majority of the patient, that is 61% of the patients, are dissatisfied with the service rendered by hospitals. So what exactly it means? So that means we need to, in India, we need to re-engineer the healthcare ecosystem with the systematic and structural changes by keeping in mind a ground reality through innovative and sustainable models of care, delivery, and business processes. So when we talk about the value-based care, it is already reshaping the ecosystem today. But what is the next frontier? The next frontier will be, which is more disruptive when it comes to the precision medicine, predictive and personalized care, which is on the horizon. So when we talk about virtual care, it is essential for us to align with impact of virtual care on business model. What is that? That is, first, what is the impact on customer? What is the impact on finance? Impact on the value proposition, and impact on capabilities, cutting across the revenue as well as the cost. So let me give you a couple of examples.
So,
when we are talking about
Raghav, shall we stick to our theme? That's how does it help in pandemic, the digital technologies, and can you be a bit brief on that?
Right, perfect. So when we are talking about the telemedicine delivery, how it is going to impact. So one is the reducing the cost of the patient, again, the threat of visiting to the hospital, taking the treatment, so those kind of the areas. And another thing is reducing the cost. So cost to the patient as well as the cost of operation for the hospitals, So when it comes to the remote care, it is more a point of care in nature. We talk about teleconsultation, the telediagnostic, where the couple of parameters like BP, SpO2, which is integrated with the system. So whereas doctors, will be able to enable, the entire electronic medical record of the patient, so which will increase the productivity as well as efficiency of the total ecosystem. So that is where the telemedicine is actually creating the impact, in this area. Yeah.
Anyone
So,
else would like to highlight how this pandemic, you've seen the adoption of digital technology?
Absolutely.
Muralidhar, your voice is, we are losing you. It's breaking.
May I add something here? May I add something here?
Please.
Hello, can I speak? Is it better?
Yes, please.
It'll be better if you give turns. Otherwise, it's going to create a lot of confusion.
Yeah, I think I agree.
Speak.
Okay. I would call
Prasad,
it.
I think you can give a option, so probably you can moderate.
Yeah, I was expecting some hands raised during. So Puneet has raised his hand. Puneet, you raise your hands on Zoom chat. I will take a turn by that. Okay.
Thank you, Prasad.
Yeah.
And thank you for
So please stick to the question that is,
introduction.
how did you help in pandemic to your customers and
I think the way we have seen as solution providers for the health tech industry, one of the key learnings as providers for solution is, I think, one, the patients and the consumers have accepted that solutions like telehealth are for real, and the adoption rate for them has increased exponentially. I think it's a mental mind shift change which we have seen for patients who have been seeking for care. I think the second other thing is virtual is becoming the next physical, and it gives a lot of leverage in terms of how patients are accessing care. You can get care where doctors are not able to, and that's becoming the new basic norm for us. And I think lastly, the most important aspect, even for care providers, from a provide standpoint, they're able to reach new geographies and new markets and build out new business models. So I think even from a seeker standpoint and from a provider standpoint, I think both are having their hands full to make the most of the opportunity. And I think the pandemic has kind of leapfrogged the adoption of digitization and digital healthcare solutions in emerging markets, more largely, as even the market study said earlier, as compared to even, I would say, Western countries for the sake of reference. But I would say, those were the three big learnings, what we have seen the market is asking for and where the solution seekers are providing as well.
Thanks, Puneet. May I request Shrikant from Persistent to share?
Prasad, cannot hear you.
Yeah, we lost you, Prasad. I think.
Can you hear me better now?
Yeah, better.
Yes.
So I was calling Shrikant from Persistent to share his views. Any exciting examples which I have not repeated
Sure.
till now? Please share your views.
So hi, thanks for giving the opportunity. My name is Shrikant. I'm a vice president at Persistent. And a couple of things that we are observing. So a little bit contrary point. We are observing that consumer satisfaction with virtual care is actually steady and it is rising. And the choice and the convenience that it allows is actually helping with that satisfaction. So we believe that over time. The other thing we are observing is the 5G network effect as the networks roll out and video conferencing applications become very common and embedded, new kinds of applications that will be available. So more and more ubiquitous. And from the business model point of view, I think virtual care is essential from a revenue substitution point of view. We have seen a lot of it in the US, where it was essential to substitute revenue loss. And I think the same thing will take effect in India as well. And finally, from a transformation point of view, what that will require is this whole chain of care will have to be digitized. Their pathways will have to be digitally transformed. So those are some of the things that we are observing.
May I go next, Prasad?
Prasad, are you there?
Yes.
Prasad, are you there?
Yes. May I request? I think I have seen another hand from Commander Pratap Pawar.
Not able to hear you.
Yes. Thanks, Prasad. Thanks for the opportunity and hi, everybody. So I'm mainly going to talk from two angles. One is the user angle, and that comes from serving almost 6,000 or 7,000 people during the pandemic. And second is from the security point of view. I work with a company called Great Software Laboratory or GS Lab. So we have been service provider. We have created applications for healthcare, and we have also been consumers. So initially, I would like to talk as a consumer. During the pandemic, especially for people who were working remotely, or for people who were not in India and whose parents were to be provided healthcare, it was telehealth that provided a big relief for us because we couldn't physically reach out to them. However, even without any help of any app or any other solution, a simple WhatsApp call with a doctor, basic cursory discussions with the doctor, that provided great relief to a lot of the people we had. What made it really difficult for us is the want of a prescription during these online consultations. That's something that had to be done physically. Fortunately, now that has been relaxed and there are applications which are able to do it. But I'll say the pandemic caught us unawares, and within 3 or 4 months of that experience, we were able to find great solutions. So that being taken care of, what really bothers me is some numbers regarding security and safety of the data. Now, since I have myself been associated with compliances of various applications that are being created, I feel that the awareness of privacy and especially healthcare data is very poor, especially in the Indian environment. It might be good as far as American or the European market is concerned with the strong regulations and data protection laws that they have. But I have seen data being created, data being very carelessly handled and transferred. So that's something that really bothers me because right now, though we don't have any regulation, but a time will come that unless we build in this safety and security of data into the products that are being created right at the design stage, we are going to land up in big problem. We already have examples of companies being wiped off because of 20 million or 30 million euro penalty.
Pratap, if I may ask you, is there anything that you provided as a solution, or have you seen any other solution that prevented this issue, or that please reduce the risk?
The risk of data leakage?
Yes, because we all know that obviously there is a risk, and especially with respect to health records, especially in
Yes,
India.
correct. So what I have personally observed within my own teams is the engineering team is so keen to provide a solution that they are more focused on creating a solution without considering what's going to be the end user's data flow and how the data is going to be handled in the 4 stages. That is when it is being created, stored, transferred, and destroyed. So we really don't focus on how the data is going to be created and how it's going to be destroyed. We are worried about storage and transfer of data.
Okay.
So specifically consent and destruction of data is something that really
You see a gap. Okay.
That's right.
I see Dr. Ashish Dhawad has also raised his hand. Dr. Ashish, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Dr. Ashish. I'm the CEO of MedSynaptic, which is the leading PACS and teleradiology provider. So I have a very short point to make. 2 things. One, we have obviously seen that radiologists were very comfortable using remote reporting teleradiology since many years. But during the pandemic, especially, we have seen the adoption of telehealth and teleradiology see a quantum jump, where almost 90 to 100% of the reporting was done from home, except where the intervention was required for the procedures on site. So they have been very comfortable working from home, and they have seen that this whole model can work very well. Second is although the infrastructure growth has been substantial in terms of data centers, bandwidth, connectivity, etc. In this pandemic situation, due to the large increase in the volume of imaging data being sent to data centers, etc., we saw choking of bandwidth happening, etc., which slowed down the whole system. So I think the IT infrastructure companies, data center companies also need to factor this in, that this is something which going forward will be a long-term requirement and accordingly scale up.
Okay, thank you, Chong. Thank you, Dr. Ashish. That was really crisp. I will move to the next question. I know there are still a few more hands, but I'm sure there are more points and there are other aspects as well to be discussed here. For example, and we talk about data privacy and whole technology and adoption of technology. And you've been working with your customers, global customers. It could be hospitals, it could be clinics. There are a whole lot of there's a big supply chain and many stakeholders in this ecosystem who play important role. How do we make them, believe in technology? See, there is always an innovation. See medical software or digitization of medical devices, And for example, today you measure blood pressure or you check your diabetes sugar levels at home, but how do you make the practitioners trust this? Or if I may extend this more complex scenario, or AR, VR, or IBM Watson being used for surgeries, how do you make practitioners believe in this technology? Because they're the biggest influencers, and they don't use it. Obviously, the hospitals won't buy our software, or the pharmaceutical companies won't buy, or diagnostic labs won't buy. So it whole look at the whole ecosystem, and the technology is playing key role. But how do you make them believe and take this to the next level? And especially with AI and IoT, how do you make them believe and make them trust us?
So absolutely. Can I go?
Yeah, please, Murli.
So basically, from the perspective, there are multiple advancement, as we all believe. There's so much of advancements happened in the devices, as well as from the perspective of whether storage, accessibility, connectivity, cloudification, and analytics and stuff like that. At the end of the day, what the practitioners believe is that the outcome. They should be able to see the outcome first and the foremost, and also the experience. In fact, I was talking to one of the brain surgeon yesterday. He was talking about how can I make not only he's more attached to the technology. He was telling that in US today it is coming as a surgical theaters. Okay, how the different doctors, different surgeons can get together to make an operation together for some of the complex things, and also make the patients aware of these kind of things. For example, to do a brain surgery, to make a brain surgery to open the brain. At the same time, today a lot of softwares are available to animated things. How we can make it exactly the real-time scenario, and also the CT MRs can be three-dimensionalized, able to see where exactly the problem is using AR and VR. That also give a perspective not only to the surgeons or getting trained surgeons, as well as to the the patients like that. That is a perspective. In fact, in L&T Technology Services, what we did was, in one of the key things we did was the endotrainer development. That is the first in the world development of endotrainer, robotic endotrainer for laparoscopic surgery. That is non-existent. Typically, the world today, they use intuitive Da Vinci systems like that. However, we have built for training the surgeons so that indigenously developed, that can be used. Going to Da Vinci is not only an effort and cost. So with our kind of a thing, they can be trained easily. So hence they can see the outcome. They can play around with this and see how it works. Then they can go to Da Vinci. What I'm trying to say is that technology available today that can help the practitioners to take it and use it is one such scenario. Another one we have done was for one of the OEMs is designing the handheld ultrasound system. So basically, typically we use always a tabletop systems. Handheld ultrasound is kind of a point of care device, and every doctor will love that, because that can be so mobile, that can be utilized like that. So practitioner loves for the ease of use. At the same time, the outcome is same, and that is what we have seen in this pandemic. There is significant change both in terms of patients as well as the the practitioner feeling that comfort. So that is what we are planning to do in the L&T Technology Services.
Thank you, Murli. Thank you. I think Preeti has raised her hand. Preeti, you have any views on this? And I am looking for also if you have collaborated with any medical institutes or say colleges, academia from medical field to when you're proposing or developing a solution, because that's the way you can make them trust a lot, right?
Yeah, thank you, Prasad. So I'm basically a pathologist, and I'm now working with InVet Prognostics, which is a startup in neuroimaging. So we have developed an AI-based tool in brain volumetry. And what we are doing is the brain structures, what our algorithm gives the volumes, we are getting it validated from the radiologist, so that once we have a report from them, which is called as the external validation for us from the that becomes the ground truth which the radiologist will report, and then it will be easier for the others to accept that. So this is one approach we are doing as of now.
Okay. Shrikant, you want to share something? I think you've raised your hand.
Yes, so to answer your first question, what we have found is the clinicians will believe the outcomes when they are part of that whole process. So we have actually partnered with institutes like Partners Healthcare and Brigham and Women's in the US or Mount Sinai. And the innovation has been led by the clinicians themselves. They have a better understanding of what is clinically possible and where technology should be applied. They may not be able to apply the technology, but they have a very good understanding of the underlying biology and the medicinal requirements. So in our experience, we have partnered with the clinicians, and whenever it is a clinician-led effort, it has led to end outcomes and acceptability overall as well. And then technology obviously helps with things like explainable AI and the models being transparent. So that is our experience so far.
Thank you, Shrikant. Anyone else wants to share their views on this aspect?
May I share a quick point here?
Yes, please. Yes.
Yes. So I like the point that Mr. Shrikant made at the start. He spoke about 5G, and I feel that's a very important point because right now we are at a stage when even a small Zoom meeting cannot be completed without 3 or 4 hiccups of are you able to hear me? Are you able to listen to me? So that's the state of infrastructure that we have right now. And I see that most of the IT professionals also are struggling here. And we are talking about providing these services to end users who might be residing at the remotest villages. So unless that sort of an upgrade happens here, it's always going to be a challenge for us. We were associated with few research institutes, hospitals, as well as clinics for developing certain apps, whether it's an app, voice-based analysis of health and other things. So what we realized is the real challenge was getting people to use these applications because they may not necessarily have the sufficient bandwidth or the device, in fact, to provide that data to the doctors for analysis. So that's always going to be a challenge for us if we are looking at a big expansion or explosion in India specifically. Second is what really excites me is a lot of startups are doing great work in creating attachable devices for the smartphones. So whether it is measuring your blood pressure, whether it is measuring the basic health parameters and conveying the same to the doctors, that's going to be of great help as far as telemedicine or telehealth is concerned. Because the doctors right now, they might be handicapped because they are not able to touch and feel the patient or even use the stethoscope. But if that sort of small innovative devices are created and they are available in the market at a very nominal rate, I think it's going to be the next wave of that's going to be the next wave of opportunity for the industry as well as for the healthcare providers. Thank you.
I think Avinash has a point to say. Avinash?
Yes. So during our research, we have found that if you look at the last couple of years, physicians and healthcare providers, they are reluctant to adopt the new technologies like AI and IoT-based medical devices. But in last couple of years, we have seen that the adoption pattern of IoT devices and AI-based devices in APAC countries is also increasing. US, they were adopting these technology within their healthcare provider setting, but in APAC countries they are reluctant to adopt the AI and IoT based devices. But we have seen that now the clinicians and the healthcare providers, they are adopting these technologies because they are reducing their workload. Like in China, in various hospitals, they have adopted the AI based solutions, and even in India, people have started adopting various kind of IoT technology. And the industry is, if we talk about the med device industry, the industry is moving towards miniaturization. now companies are developing portable devices, and even they are working to develop non-invasive devices. Like if we talk about the glucose monitoring, when self-monitoring, self-blood glucose monitoring was launched, then that industry moved towards continuous blood glucose monitoring. Now they have, if we talk about the Abbott cesium, they have launched the world's smallest cesium. That is, I think, 1-inch rounded devices which you can patch anywhere in your body. So the industry is moving towards miniaturization, and even now companies are working towards development of non-invasive blood glucose monitoring devices, and even some companies are trying to incorporate the glucose monitoring system into their into your health watches, so you can easily monitor the thing. And one biggest thing which we have seen that usually pharma companies are in development of drugs, but in last 6 months we have observed a company like Eli Lilly. They have developed a mental health, they have developed an app for migraine, and they probably they are going to launch that app through Apple Store, iStore, through iStore. So we are seeing that even pharma company is looking towards various kind of health apps, because they are finding this market lucrative. So probably in next couple of years we can see that the pharma giants are also entering into the various kind of technology part, and even we may find that few giants are started developing different kind of uh, app for the chronic management, chronic disease management.
Thanks, Avnish. Shalini, I think you have raised your hand. You want to share something?
Yeah, thank you. Hi, this is Shalini. I work with Entity Data Services. So we heard a lot about, the new technologies. We heard about, how pharmacy companies are trying to launch new devices. I think one fundamental thing that is actually limiting telehealth or telemedicine in India, in my view, would be awareness, especially in the rural area. The lack of infrastructure, yes, but also awareness of the power of telehealth. The fact that Indians, the folks in the rural areas have to start believing that if they are just hearing the doctor on the phone, the doctor is still able to give them the right diagnosis for the ailment that they might have is extremely important. And I think that is an area where definitely there should be additional partnership to see how can we build awareness around telehealth.
Thank you, Shalini. Anyone else who has to share any views?
Another interesting topic also would be is that telemedicine and remote monitoring, especially remote monitoring, is extremely important because of the population is getting aged, and chronic treatment of patients is actually taking them to hospitals, and also whether they are in the house or in the rehab in itself is becoming a major issue. Remote monitoring with 5G or current this one, it's taking a significant role there. The another aspect telemedicine has given now is that if you are tracking in US, for example, there were no regulations for telemedicine for last 30-35 years, and after this COVID has come out, and it has actually they have within few days they could able to approve it, and it has changed the community from the regulatory authorities also to take step which is useful for the mankind, and there's a good step. I think a lot of things are happening in this healthcare segment as a whole. I think the time is too short. I want to give a chance to others also to speak, because there's so many things each one of us can talk for hours together.
So we'll build a series on this. Trust me.
Yeah, that's basically I suggested only one topic.
Yes,
so then probably you can.
You wanted to see the response here, and I think we got pretty good response.
Yeah.
We'll take this group. We can build a SIG around this, and we can take it forward. Then we can involve hospitals, practitioners, so we can reach out to them.
So Prasad, one topic that we have not discussed really is data security, data sharing.
Yes. I'm coming to that. In fact, that is
So just I want to leave one topic on the table, which is, as a country, we are practicing medicine without having our own set of guidelines and our own set of medical criteria. And what that needs is a data set that is unique to our population. So I want to leave that on the table, if possible, to discuss.
And I agree with you. I think we will have the largest data bank in the world, right? I mean, this has been discussed in past as well. Even today, it's not a structured format. The data amount of data we will have about health records is enormous, and it will pave ways for new research. Actually, a lot more can be done with the data we have. In fact, the world can look at data we have. We can have data banks, and those banks could be, we can monetize those banks if we anonymize that data. I agree with you. But I think we still have Dinesh and Dr. Raghu who want to share their views. Dinesh is from Aurangabad, and he has a product which is a blood bank management system. I found Dinesh around 5 years back, and I think Dinesh's blood bank management system has been deployed across different blood banks in India. Dinesh, please share your views. You're on mute, Dinesh.
Yeah, hi, I'm Dinesh from Strides, and we are into enabling safe, high quality and high availability of blood components through information technology. Okay, so we are working with almost 180 plus hospitals and blood banks across India. And during the COVID time, one thing which has really helped quicker adoption of technology, or rather the people who have adopted, I mean the hospitals and blood banks who have adopted the technology to realize the potential, was because of the constant changing norms in the screening. I'm talking mainly from the transfusion medicine perspective. So there were constant change in the screening norms. There were a lot of interventions happening in the blood transfusion cycle, and the only way they could adapt very fast as per the norms was through the technology. So that is the reason, one thing which has really helped our existing customer, as well as a lot of because of that advantage, a lot of people are now looking at digitizing the processes so that they can adopt to the quicker changes in workflows and interventions in the healthcare processes cause of pandemics like COVID or any other uncertain scenario. The second definitely was the huge repository of data available on this platform, helped blood banks to reach out to eligible and the right donors during this pandemic, especially when it came to because of the shortage of the blood components. Blood banks were keen to adopt to this, right from cloud-based IVRS systems to reaching out to donors through different platforms, as well as using bots to check if the people are available to donate, and also screen them remotely to check if they're eligible to donate blood or not. And third point which I wanted to add was definitely the advantage because of the digitization. The inventory of almost 175 plus hospitals and blood banks was online, and a lot of hospitals and blood banks actually collaborated, helped each other because of the shortage of inventory. They were on one side, there were almost 30% of the patients not getting what they were looking at, and on the other side, there were also few inventory which was getting wasted because of the shorter shelf life of different components. So this has actually helped the entire ecosystem to optimize the entire blood components and the products, and actually work together to fight the challenges and overcome that. So,
I think that is very indeed a direct value add and exciting example. Thank you so much.
So these were the three key things which I'm looking at, and definitely with this thing, there were a lot of changes in compliances and reporting of those compliances and ensuring that everybody is ensuring, following those compliances to ensure that the right blood components of the right donor has been selected and the right blood is reaching out to the patient. So this was also, we're able to, blood banks are able to report, hospitals are able to report easily with because of the digitization aspect.
Thank you.
That is what I wanted to add, and thanks.
Dr. Raghu, you have a point to make.
So Prasad, during this COVID time, we actually worked on secured blockchain solution, which is for tracking the vaccination, and it will actually start tracking. It will entirely cover the supply chain management, right from the manufacturer to the national storage facility, regional hospitals, how it is going to reach the health center, and what kind of the vaccination outreach programs which can be conducted, and what should be the temperature it should reach, the entire tracking mechanism that actually we built in this area. So whereas actually Atos got a lot of appreciation from Europe government and a couple of other healthcare the providers on this vaccination tracking system, enabling the entire vaccination tracking system to transform the COVID situation, So that is what we developed.
Thank you, Dr. Raghav. I move to another point, and especially those who've worked on hospital management systems. Healthcare is actually an integral part of every country's government's charter, and it's an important component of your smart city projects. It involves public and private players both. Do you see a kind of difference in the way private sector has adopted or public sector has government hospitals have adopted technology? Do you see any gap, and do you think there needs certain attention, or we need to reach out to certain players, especially governments? How do you see if there is any difference? Was I audible? Okay, Dr. Ashish, you have raised a hand. Is it that you want to make a comment?
Yeah, so it's, I mean, private versus government. Definitely, private has been in the forefront to adopt technologies pertaining to HMIS or PACS. But we are seeing more and more interest from the government sector. In fact, the kind of push that is coming from the government to adopt technologies is really something which is appreciable. And apart from premier institutions like all the new AIIMS, the previous government hospitals, which are primary, tertiary care hospitals, etc., they are giving a big push to automation and digitalization of healthcare. And a substantial budget is being allocated, which is something which we are seeing for the first time, where there is a clear-cut focus on adopting latest technologies, including AI, in day-to-day workflows of the hospital. This is something which is really appreciable, and I think in the next few years, government will be one of the biggest drivers of digitalization in the healthcare sector. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ashish. I think Shrikant had raised a very valid point around data privacy. And across the world, there are various compliances, and we need to scale up from India perspective. At the same time, there is another aspect with respect to data interoperability. With new devices coming, with new protocols coming in, how do you see data interoperability? It could be healthcare providers, it could be your insurance, so many stakeholders in this whole chain with respect to hospital management systems, insurance systems, claim management systems. How do you see the data interoperability? And now with your added layer of wearables and portable devices, what are your views with respect to data interoperability across? And then we can talk about whether we have those necessary components which will take care of data privacy, data leakage. Any views on this? I'm not seeing any hands here.
Yeah,
yeah.
May I?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah. I haven't really seen a big challenge in this field because initially there was, I mean, what sort of data would be available from each device. But I think there's some sort of standardization coming into this space. So it's being accepted that, data, if it is being created, then it needs to be in a certain format. And that's also mainly because of the compliance standards that are already driven by not Indian regulations, but the regulations from the other countries. So some sort of standardization is already seen in my experience. But I would like to hear opinion from the other experts also.
So yeah, HL7 as a committee and as a standards body has made significant progress. So I'm sure you're aware of the FHIR standard, FHIR, which is very widely used in the US, and in India as well. FHIR has been recommended as one of the standards that can be used. If you actually look at the National Health Blueprint, FHIR has been called out for use as well. So as part of the HL7 committee in India, we are evangelizing how FHIR can be used. We are working with a lot of essentially enthusiasts and technology companies, helping them really understand what FHIR is, how to get started with FHIR, how to transform data to FHIR. So it is going to take time, but the standards are available. And with all the work happening around the National Health Authority in India especially, I think this will start to see getting momentum.
Okay. Dr. Raghav, you also raised a hand for this.
Yeah, see, when it comes to the data digital transformation and interoperability perspective. So whereas Atos helped the customer in 3 phases. One is optimizing how we are going to streamline existing process, notably through real-time clinical delivery, electronic health record, and the collaborative workplace. And the second phase is like interconnect, as orchestrate synergies between all ecosystem. Either it may be the hospital information management system, so maybe it is something related to the lab information system, or any kind of the third-party application which is part of the healthcare ecosystem. Okay, we will help them to do the collaboration through telehealth and population health management platform. And the advanced level of the phases where we do is the reinvent, So whereas we will leverage the latest advances, which is in the genomics as well as in the medical tech, to enable the precision medicine. So this is the 3 approaches where we actually help the customer, to work on the interoperability. And also we work very closely with the partners.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Shalini,
if I may add,
please.
Yeah, thank you. So from entity data services perspective, we launched Nucleus for Healthcare, which is a smart platform where we have put together the providers, the revenue cycle management, interoperability, all those aspects in one place. This is a platform that we have created so that the patients get to see a single window, and they are able to, from getting into the hospital and getting admitted to a hospital to getting their claims through, they do not have to go and chase various different entities to get their outcomes met. So Nucleus for Healthcare is definitely a solution that is completely built in trying to put together an end-to-end solution.
Thank you, Shalini.
Thank you.
So my next point is about research and development, and especially initially somebody pointed about engineering in this segment. So engineering and R&D in this segment, how do you see as tech service provider or tech solution provider or tech product providers, how much funds are being allocated to research? And how are you conducting your research? How are you collaborating with institutes, say for example, National Institute of Virology, or how are you collaborating and how are you moving ahead? Because this requires a solid integration and collaboration with various stakeholders in the ecosystem. So how is that coming up? Please share your views. Vinith has raised his hand. I think. Vinith, you want to share something?
Prasad, that was for the previous question.
Yeah, you want to take that?
So
I'm okay. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Folks, let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Vinil Menon. I'm the CTO at CTS Tech. And at CTS Tech, our experience has predominantly been in the US healthcare. So whatever I mentioned, it will be in that context. However, I do have a personal opinion on interoperability in India, especially having been in this field for close to 15 years and having been a consumer of healthcare in India. See, what as Murli had mentioned, what triggered IT adoption in healthcare in the US was a strong government-driven push. But in case of India, health is a state subject. And unless there is a pull either from us as a patient population or a push from the government, I don't think there is going to be much change in the interoperability space, where locally interoperability will happen within a large conglomerate. that provides healthcare across multiple verticals. But expecting my physician to have data that I would have gotten from a lab, let's say a large public charitable trust, that I don't think is going to change unless there is a specific trigger that India takes up. And again, the difficulty is India is a more of a conglomeration of, in my personal opinion, nation states, where there is quite a bit of diversity in not just the language, but culture, availability of medical facilities, the education levels, and at a fundamental level, just the sheer number of physicians available to tackle specific areas. IT penetration is going to be a lot more challenging, given that we'll have to start with probably a mobile first approach. So alluding to an earlier point, a SIG in this would be a good start, where we could probably share our point of view with the right bodies. That said, let me also take the second question. So one of the experiences, and this goes back to a previous question that you had as well, during the pandemic, one of our clients, which is a large health system in the US, they actually had to set up a virtual ICU. And they got hold of just arms and the saline stands. And then they jerry-rigged using nylon ties. They attached 1,500 iPads and created a virtual ICU setup. And the problem that they faced was, so the iPad did give them some amount of segregation between the patient and the nurse practitioners or the folks who had to visit them on a daily or a weekly basis. But the IT systems, even though many of them were standards driven and integrated at the hospital level, but a biomed device that would be measuring, say, the ECG, and that would not be collated with the data coming in from the lung monitoring devices or the VO2 levels. And that would not be available with the data that the iPad was sharing. So although the iPad enabled via FaceTime, they could speak to the patient. So what has happened now is this has spawned through initiative of this particular health system. This has spawned a new biomed integration space for in this. So this is taking remote engagement in a more localized context, where you don't need to be as close to the patient, yet we are available and around that space to interact with the patient. So this, as in this hospital, is driving the innovation in the space, given that they had this experience and they had the notions to share. Yeah, let me pass it on to others. So the short answer, yes, there is quite a bit of R&D investment happening, both from the traditional players, the likes of the large, the Fortune 100 healthcare technology companies are entering into fray with a lot of integrated offerings, which a lot of my esteemed colleagues here have mentioned. But at the same time, I mean, hospitals are now getting into the R&D space, knowing that a lot of tech that is being driven through engineering mindset, which was also a point that was raised earlier. It is not coming from the field. Okay. So the need to drive your own product investment as well as build it out and then maybe take it to a wider tech company to popularize it. We're seeing signs of that also happening, at least in the US context. Thank you.
Thanks, Vinil. Anybody else has any views or want to share, how they are collaborating for research? Any specific institutes you will name that, you've collaborated with them for research on a particular topic, or you come up with solution through research?
Prasad, Atos, as all of you know, it is a French IT company having presence in 73 countries, and with a revenue of 13 billion euros. So whereas India is one of the strategic market for Atos, and we are in India close to 25 years now, but there was not actually that much of the market. Actually, the focus was there. But from last 5 years, under the leadership of our India CEO, Umar Sheikh, as well as Manjunath Kulkarni, there are a lot of actually the focus in the healthcare and the life science system. So whereas Atos invested and having a strategic partnership with CDAC, and we are developing a lot of advanced technology in the quantum computing with CDAC in India.
Fantastic. CDAC is born in Pune, so yes, fantastic. Yeah. Anything else? Shrikant, you've raised your hand.
Yeah, I quickly want to share. So Persistent has a dedicated lab, and we do collaborate with a lot of research institutes within India as well as in the US. One of the highlights recently that I want to call out. TCGA is a cancer genome atlas for US population, and we have started a collaboration in India for something called as ICGA, which will essentially replicate that cancer genome atlas, but for the Indian population. So we are collaborating locally and also with TCGA. Again, the same idea, which is TCGA captures all the cancer-related mutations, but these are for the Caucasian population, and we need something for the Indian population, hence ICGA.
Okay, so that data repository will be built very soon. Okay. And with that, we'll come to the last question. See, all this is for patients, finally, end user who should get services at a reasonable cost. What is one thing that comes to your mind if you want to raise your hand and share that, these are things we should do, one or two things, maximum you think that, you can make the technology accessible to the patient or make your life, make patient's life easy because there are long queues in the hospitals, access to doctors are limited. Access to doctors is also difficult than taking appointments, spending time. What are a couple of things you would like to highlight that, must do and you think that, they're going to make a big difference, reaching out, making sure that medical facilities reach out to the remotest place as well. Vinith, you have raised your hand.
Yeah, Prasad. So one of the things I would, and I don't know who the audience would be, but our focus has to be more on health than on care.
Okay.
And which means we need to start much earlier, and we need to have basic education at school, college, and even the workplace level education on what constitutes the right habits. Oftentimes, even the basics are completely missed. And as is noticed by the sudden uptick in the pandemic numbers, as in common sense is not so common. So
I like what you said.
My
should be on health and care. I think, yeah, being proactive is what is required, and that comes from a technology company. Thank you so much, Vinith. Dr. Raghav, you also want to say something?
Yeah, Prasad, see, with complex healthcare stakeholder ecosystem, what we have, billions of patients and connected healthcare devices, it is a very data intensive field. More than any other vertical, so definitely the cloud services, artificial intelligence, IoT, okay, will be the core technology, okay, which is required to be successful, okay, as a healthcare provider or life science company, So what I feel is there are 4 transformational challenges and opportunities for the future of the healthcare. One is we have to rethink patient experience, dramatically reduce the healthcare cost, even though, okay, the India is healthcare cost is much lower, but predominantly it is not a reality. Develop value-based healthcare, guarantee total trust and compliance. These are all the 4 transformational challenges and opportunities which is in front of us.
Thank you, Dr. Raghav. Anybody else who want to share any views on this topic or anything else you think we should discuss now or in the future series? More than happy to know about that, because I think we would like to run this as a forum and take your views, invite other stakeholders in the ecosystem. It could be hospitals, it could be pharmaceutical companies, and make it a vibrant forum. Look forward to your input. This is the last call. Anyone else who want to share anything?
So this is Nikita, and one little thing I need to add, that if we are talking about the telehealth and telemedicine, so we can improve the patient engagement with remote monitoring. So there is an increasing role of consumerism and value-based reimbursement in healthcare that has led hospitals and health systems to emphasize new ways of interacting with their patient to engage them in self-care. So patient engagement tools are one of the vital things that can lead to delivering value-based care, and with the help of remote patient monitoring and telehealth.
Thanks, Nikita. And I think
Prashant,
one of the areas that would play important role in this is user experience.
Prashant,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Avnish.
Yes, as Srikanth was mentioning that mentioning about data. So I believe the data is one of the most important thing in next 5 years, because if you look at the data, if we talk about the India perspective, the data, the challenge which we were discussing about the interoperability, the biggest challenge is unorganized data. People are using different labels of like HL7, like Srikanth is mentioning FHIR is coming. The adoption of FHIR is increasing in US. But if you look at the APAC countries, even people are not fully aware about the HL7. They are using HL6, HL5, HL4. So adoption of these HL7, HL4 is now they are moving towards HL7. FHIR, I don't think so. People are adopting FHIR in India, but probably as Srikanth was mentioning that they were working on that. So people will adopt. So biggest challenge is unorganized data in India. So that's why that is the major concern about the interoperability. If we are not getting the organized data, it will be very difficult in the prospect of interoperability. And second thing, why data is so important and will be so important. If you look at the current scenario, the company wanted to organize or wanted to manage their trials on the basis of data. Now company wanted real world data. Even if you look at the FDA part, they are evaluating phase 4 trial on the basis of real world data. And companies, the med device companies, the pharma companies, they wanted data to support their trial, to manage their trial, and to organize their trial. So the data will be next biggest thing in healthcare in next 5 years, I believe so. And this is personal my understanding, as I'm working on different set of reports in healthcare IT. So I have observed that data will be the biggest thing in next 5 years within the healthcare.
Thank you so much, Avnish, for your views. With this, I would like to conclude this roundtable and would seek your feedback on how do we run this forum. We'll pick topics of your interest, and we'll also involve other ecosystem players in this forum. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your views.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you very much, Kalpesh,
Thank you, folks.
for providing us
It was a privilege.
Pleasure.
Thank you
Dear
very
audience, thank you all for your participation in NASSCOM Western Region Health Tech Day. We look forward to your feedback that you may wish to send on pune@nasscom.in. Take care and stay safe, everybody.
Thank you.